see the still life so you can see my painting. Give me okay, thanks, Dan. You can see me. Let's try this again. Good morning. We're live. Hope you guys are doing good. And we're going to be live here every Friday on the patio to help encourage us, inspire us, educate us with plein air landscape painting. And again, I want to show you last week's painting. We were talking about a couple tips on how to not have flat, boring paintings. And so today is the flip side of that coin. We're going to talk about how to add depth to your painting. So we're just going to describe different tips to help you pass those obstacles. Now, after last week's live show, I just kind of worked on this a little bit and kind of finished up with this just so you can see it. And it's a pretty simple painting. I like it. I think maybe I could make that smaller next time, the background planter. But we were painting Colorado peaches, and it was really fun. And I like the color that came in the peaches. And one of the pro tips that we had was to put that kind of core dark or darkest dark underneath your fruit to kind of lift it off the canvas. Okay, so here's what we have this week. And like I said, we're going to talk about a couple tips to use color and value to help you add depth to your plein air paintings. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Stick with us. And we are going to have a live Q&A at the very end of the show. So stay tuned for that. If you're watching our replay, skip around and check out the other videos if you'd like on landscape plein air painting in the mountains. Hey, if we're just meeting, I'm Terry, and my passion is plein air painting. I started plein air painting when I had a stressful sales job in about 2004, 2006, and I took some art classes at the Art Students League of Denver, and just at nighttime to relieve stress and anxiety associated with life. And I took all kinds of classes and stumbled across plein air painting outdoors and fell in love with it and never really looked back, and have sold my work, been in galleries, and I still have a long ways to go, but I love it. And I hope you guys love it too. You can see me. Good. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Dan. Glad you guys joined us. We got some good tips here this morning, so hang with me. And what else? If you're in the chat, say hello. And I hope you guys are painting this weekend. Dan, I know you are painting this weekend, I heard. And so I'll bet you're looking forward to your weekend. Bob, I hope you're painting or at least watching some paintings on YouTube, right? All right, let's get into this. I'm going to sit and let's paint. And what I have here is I kind of made it through this painting a little bit. I never really know how much to paint for you guys. Sometimes I leave a lot of the canvas showing and maybe start at the beginning of the drawing stage, but you let me know what you need. But what I did was I don't know if you can see this, but I left this apple undone with its shadow. And someone asked last week what cross-hatching was. Last week we talked about why your paintings might be flat. And that could be because your proportions are off of your shapes. It could be that your placement is off of your shapes and your perspective is off and your pieces. So the drawing is where you could be messing up, and also your values. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But cross-hatching is where I just draw in with a cross-hatching method where the cast shadow is and where the shadow is on the apple. And I do that for every piece in the drawing phase before I start so that I have a good, mental map and clarity of where I want to go with my colors. So, paint. Oh, Bob, you did paint this weekend. Nice. Good for you. Good for you. Oh, that's awesome. Awesome, man. Remind me where you are again, Bob. I forget what state you're in, but I'm just curious where you're painting. But as you answer that, that's kind of what I did here is I left the cross hatching, I left the drawing in this one piece of the apple so you could see it. So we're going to paint the apple, paint the shadow, and talk about 3 questions that I ask myself during every painting as I move around from piece to piece, and it helps me add depth and dimension to my painting. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So, hey, I got a quote of the day for you guys. Mindset is so important, especially during these times. And I try to, I memorize Bible verses. I memorize quotes and sayings from successful people to try to stay positive. And so here's your one for today. It's learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. What do you think of that quote? That is Pablo Picasso. I like that. I had to chuckle when I heard that quote because, break them like an artist. It's like there's so many people that want to put art and rules in a box, like composition. You got to have your rule of thirds. You got to have leading lines. You got to do it this way. Art, in my mind, rules are made to be broken. And I follow a few general rules, but I don't really follow too many. And, I also thought that was thought that was kind of funny because there's all these YouTubers, and I'm going to paint here in about 30 seconds. All these YouTubers, not me, but think that they know, everything about painting. And there's so many of us telling you things. So as a beginner, it can be kind of confusing. So what I would recommend for you, if you're just beginning, is to expose yourself in the beginning to as many painting people and YouTubers and artists as you can, and then kind of focus it in on maybe 3 or 4 artists that you really want to know, like, and trust, that kind of thing, and follow. And then further it down to 1 or 2 from there, and follow that path once you know your style, once you know what you like and what you want to accomplish in art, and then just go for it, man. So that's why I thought that quote was funny. Hey, let's paint. I'm going to sit, metal stool, and hopefully you can see. If you need me to adjust anything, let me know. We're on the laptop, so when I switch to the cell phone for lives here pretty soon, when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I'll be able to do it like my normal videos and zoom in. But I've pre-mixed up some colors so you don't have to wait for me. And let's go right immediately into the greens of this apple, okay? So I mixed up some, for the shadow of this apple, I mixed up some ultramarine blue and some cad yellow medium and a little yellow ochre. And it gives me a little bit of red. And so I'm kind of desaturating the green a little bit so that it takes the vibrancy out of that. You don't really want to have a really vibrant shadow green unless that's what you're seeing. And I'm not really seeing it on that green apple. It's kind of a bluish ochre type color. So I'll dip into a little medium, and with a big number 12 brush, I am just going to follow my drawing, man. Just easy. Just put in that like that. And then let's get into tip number 1. And that is the first question I ask myself as I move from piece to piece around my painting is, what color is it? And I'm going to go a little deeper. That's kind of obvious. Hey, Terry, yeah, no kidding, right? But what color is the apple? What family? It's green. This one's red. What color is the planter box? It's like a rusty brown color. Well, once I get, my color family, it's green, then I got to kind of ask myself, well, what color is the shadow of the apple compared to the shadow, the cast shadow of the apple? So I compare. I'm always comparing. I compare light colors to light colors, the green up here in the leaves compared to the green of the apple. And so that's what I do, is I ask myself, what color is it, And then I ask myself, what color are other things around it? Because like I said before, this is an important tip, is that color means nothing on your palette, really. It's helpful to lay out your puddles and to compare them that way. But color only makes sense when it's in relation to the color beside it. And you can say that many ways, that a color is only what it is, based on what's around it, is another way to say it. So there's your shadow right there. And even within that shadow, I ask myself, well, the top of the shadow has more ultramarine blue in there, like right there, it has a little more ultramarine blue. So I'm just going to try to show that. That's kind of like the darkest part of the shadow is right there at the top of the apple. So I just want to show that maybe, but not have it too blue. I still need it to be green, And then, the bottom of the apple is more of an ochre. It has more of that yellow ochre in it, like right here. So I'm going to go like that, with a little more yellow ochre in the bottom of that shadow. I grab my paper towels and all right, if you guys got anything in the chat, throw it in. Welcome again if you're joining us. We're live, and we are painting plein air still life. And why do we do this? Well, we're landscape plein air painters, because if you can paint an apple, you can paint a tree. If you can paint the bowl of cherries, you can paint a river. And as I said, I was trained in Russian impressionism, and when you're trained in that line of art, you start out with black and white paintings, and then you progress to color eventually. And you start out painting more apples than you would ever dream of, right? And then you can go outside and paint the mountains. So it's because we can focus on our pieces and our shapes and our techniques and tips, and the apples aren't going to jump off the page. Nothing's going to off the table. Nothing's really going to happen. It's kind of a controlled environment in your studio or out here on the patio. So that's why we're doing this, man. So welcome. And if you have questions, save them till the end. I'll try to help as best I can. And I know some of the guys like Dan and Bob can maybe help in the chat as well. And so let's go on to question number 2, and that's going to be, what value is it? And so the biggest thing I see with beginner plein air painters is their values are off, and that's just practice and understanding of color theory and values. But you want to ask yourself, what's darker, the bowl of cherries or the apple? The answer would be the cherries. What's darker, the shadow on the apple or the cast shadow of the apple? You know, the shadow on the apple is darker, and so it's a darker value. And so what's my lightest value would be another question I would ask in this painting. Well, it's the tablecloth, probably the negative space, the background. And what's the darkest object, darkest value in my painting? And that would likely be these rich, beautiful colored bowl of cherries here. So that's the second question that I ask myself as I'm moving myself through my pieces. And it's really crucial that you ask these questions and process them and think them, not just mix up a bunch of paint and throw it on the canvas. I mean, if you want to have fun and just not care, that's fine too. You can do that. But if you want to add depth to your paintings, you have to ask these questions and you have to know how to answer them, you know? So let's put the shadow, what I've got. I don't know if you can see it. I can't move the laptop, but there's two cherries right here in the cast shadow of the apple. That's kind of tricky. And so I'm going to put in the cast shadow of the apple. It's just right here. And it's basically an ultramarine blue, kind of a violet color. And I can use my shadow to carve out the apple. You guys ever do that? You can do that. You can just carve around to make the shape of the apple with the shadow, you know, and kind of do it that way. So I just covered up those cherries in the shadow because I want to show you. And then I'm just going to take like a flat like that. And I'm going to go into alizarin crimson. And I'm going to go into phthalo blue. Those cherries are such a rich, beautiful, dark. It's almost like you can't get them dark enough, you know? And there is no light hitting these two cherries. And so I just see them as kind of a couple shapes. And so I just, did you see how I did that technique wise with my brush? I just put it on the canvas and I just twist it around. I don't know if they teach you that in art school, but I'm pretty sure that in that famous painting, Sunrise by Monet with the orange sun, I'm sure that's how he made his sun. Don't you think? Probably put his brush right there and just did a little 360. So phthalo blue and alizarin crimson. And we can work some more with that, but there's not a lot of light. But I guess what I'm saying is pay attention to the color of those cherries and the color of the cast shadow. That's important, you know, to show depth. And so let's go. I mean, we could work more on the shadow of this apple. I'm going to make it darker at the top. I just kind of right up here. And that's almost too blue, you know, but it's a bluish green. But it's important, you know, the light is coming from here. So in my drawing, I want to follow my drawing, you know, of where my shadow is and ask those questions. Well, what color is that shadow and what value is that shadow? I almost think I got that like too blue, but I'll move on. But I want to put the light on this apple next. And you'll see that, you know, that saying that I've always said, that the shadows do the heavy lifting and the light gets all the credit. Watch this when we put the light on, how things just kind of burst with color and make a little bit more sense, you know? And this is why I always start personally with my darkest darks, because it keys the painting for all my other colors. And it's why I put my shadows in first, mostly, you know, not every single shadow, but because the shadows really are so important. So I've mixed up a mixture of cad yellow light and a little bit of ultramarine blue and a little bit of phthalo green. You don't necessarily have to have that color on your palette, but I like it here in the summertime in particular. But remember how we talked about, I'm talking today about, you know, pieces of color and value. Okay, so remember this from last week. On the apple or anything you're painting, a tree or a mountain or a building, you're going to have the light, you're going to have the shadow, you're going to have the cast shadow, and in the middle of the object where the light isn't washing it out, you're going to have the halftone. So you need to study and understand what a halftone is. It's the real color of the apple without the shadow washing it out or the light. Does that make sense? So here we go. This is going to be fun because I'm basically putting a light next to a dark, the shadow of this red apple. And so watch how it just kind of jumps out, you know? I mean, look at that. It's just one brush stroke and you can already kind of make sense of what I'm trying to do here. And I'm just following my drawing. I'm using accurate geometric shapes, even though I'm an impressionist and I'm messy. There's some method to my madness, you know? And so that's going to be my lightest my lightest part of the apple and the lightest value on my apple. So that was question number 2. What value is it? And let's just see if we can, you can make more sense of that apple. Like I can go and where the stem is right there, I can just go like this with a alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. And later in my painting, in the forming stage, you see I can work big pieces to small pieces. That's how we paint, thin to thick and big to small. And so I'm making the pieces appear more three-dimensional and have more depth. And so that's what you want to strive to as a beginner. I notice with a lot of beginners, they don't always make it all the way through their plein air painting. And it ends up looking a little bit two-dimensional and flat, and lacking depth. And so that's kind of how we do that in the later stages of things, as far as adding depth there. And my shape's a little off on this. I mean, we could go, let's just try to adjust that a little bit. It's kind of more like this. There we go. It was just missing one brush stroke. But, you always want to look for opportunities to create interest in your paintings. And what creates interest is a light next to a dark. And like, over here, this is interesting to me. The light coming and hitting the dark planter right there. So let's move on to point number 3. And we've got our apple. Oh, you know what else? Let's just do the highlight real quick. So as we progress throughout the weeks here on the patio, I want to talk about elements of light and shadow because it will help you tremendously. There's a highlight on that apple. Did you notice can you see this highlight here? I wish I could, maybe at the end of it, I'll zoom in, but there's a highlight on this apple, and it's a mixture of titanium white and cerulean blue. And it's very, very cool highlight on that apple. So I'm going to put the highlight on this apple, and it's a little bit warmer. It's titanium white, and it's some cad yellow, and that's too dull. But you want to include a highlight on your objects, on your fruit, your still life. It adds that dimension to it, and it brings it to life. That's what that is. So I would like to make that just a little bit lighter. And so I'm going to go ahead in there right now and just with a quick brush stroke like that there. It's a little bit lighter. So there's a highlight right there. And I think that will kind of do it. We'll move on. Point number 3 or question number 3 that you would ask yourself is what temperature is it? So summarizing, my 3 questions are, what color is it? What value is it? And what temperature is it? And I'm always comparing, right? So as I told you, what's the warmest part of my painting? What do you think it is? If you in the chat, throw it in there. Yeah, Dan, you're going to lose us because you're driving to your plein air location, huh? I see how it is. You'd rather paint than watch me paint, huh? Have fun, buddy. And I think one of the warmest parts is, in fact, this apple. The light on the tablecloth is one of the lightest or warmest, one of the warmest temperatures. And so is the light on this apple. And then what is the coolest? Well, it's the reason why I painted out here today is these cherries, these beautiful cherries. They're rich. Let me just show you one thing real quick is a highlight on these cherries. This will bring this bowl of cherries a little bit to life once you see me do this. There's highlights, reflected light, hitting these cherries in various spots like this. See that? And I just kind of pick and choose my spots randomly. And that just gives dimension. I don't know if you can see that from where you are. I'll bring the painting off the easel in a minute. Gives dimension and shape and form to these cherries that are in there, all kind of on top of one another. So that's something you could do there. And so those are the 3 questions you want to ask. We'll get into the Q&A, the questions if you have any right now in a minute here. But let me move this painting from last week. And then, of course, with the flowers, we didn't really do much there. But certainly we could, just a couple brush strokes, if you permit me, to put the white flowers on the top left over there. And just to kind of give some more meaning to this up here. And I want to show you something with these flowers that I just kind of thought of as I was painting it. Okay. So I just kind of get some, the light shape. I'm not painting flowers. I'm just painting the light on the flowers right now. And the shape and the placement of where those flowers are is kind of what I'm doing like that. And that's just kind of, and then what I want to show you is Okay, and then I'll put the shadow part of those flowers in. They're white, but they've got these beautiful, they're catching light from the other flowers. So you can put the shadow part like right in there, you see, and it gives more form and definition to these. But what I was going to say was what you could do is behind these flowers is a dark wall, is you could, you could go like this to make those flowers kind of pop a little bit and get that wall in there is something that you could do right there. See, to make the white flowers pop a little bit. And then what else? This isn't done, but I didn't really finish this in here, but that's okay. I think we got our points across about color, value, and temperature. And so let's get into any questions you might have. Bob, if you're still there, if you got a comment. The warmest is the apple. You're right. Yeah, I think especially with the colors I used, I really popped it. That's the warmest. That's the coolest part of the painting. And so I think it helps to summarize, give you depth in your painting when you ask yourself these questions before you even mix up the colors as you move from piece to piece in your painting. If you're painting a mountain range, okay, you know how I do it. Watch my other videos. I got piece number 1, the mountains, piece number 2, the foreground trees, is you want to ask yourself what color, value, and temperature are these pieces? And if you can dial those in through practice and knowledge, you will create atmospheric layers of depth that will be believable and interesting to the people that look at your paintings. And so let's get into the question part of things. I know I've got questions from subscribers that I've received this week. So Dan says, nice use of the shadows, the shape of the apple. Yeah, you can do that, right? You can use your shadow to cut into and form and shape your apple. And I'm seeing kind of a different color in this part of the shadow that's cooler with more cerulean blue right there that I didn't really kind of nab. But don't just make your shadow colors all one color. Don't make your shadow colors boring. Use color, use opposing color groups. If you've got a green apple, look for opportunities to put red or violet in the shadow because it's there. So, all right, questions. You got any? Fire them at me. Comments, whatever. Let me know what you're struggling with. I'll make YouTube videos for you. I don't make them for me. I don't like watching myself. I make them for you. So tell me what you'd like to see on these YouTube videos as we get into these questions here, live Q&A. If you're watching on replay, leave me a comment. Tell me how I can make videos things you're struggling with. And I'll just kind of get my mug a little closer here so I can see.
926.
Great demo. Thanks. You're welcome, Bob. And here's a question that we get quite a bit. And I think Bob and Dan, you may already know the answer to this one, but is how do you transport your wet paintings from the field back home? And there's 3 ways you can do that. Number 1, the most practical, least expensive way is like a cardboard box or a pizza box. And that's good for the beginning, but I would progress to, as your paintings get better and more valuable to you, is try to get something a little more sturdy. Like, the second thing you could do is they're called wet panel carriers or wet panel boxes. And you can get them on Jerry's Artorama or dickblick.com. I've got affiliate links with dickblick.com. As you guys know, click below, and at no extra cost to you, you can see all the materials that I use and buy them. And but it doesn't cost you anything else. It just helps me out with the affiliation. So the second thing is those wet panel carriers. Look under the brand names of Raymar, Gorilla, and Julian. So Raymar, R-A-Y-M-A-R. And those are mostly for small panel carriers. So if you paint a little larger like I do in the field, I was trained on like 20 by 24s. They don't really make panel box carriers that big for wet oil paintings, which has been frustrating for me. So I made my own. So the third thing you can do is make your own. I'll show it to you sometime if you're interested, but I have made I've made a panel, like a pine box, a wood box, and I put like shelves in it that you can stick the wet paintings in. If you go camping for a week or go on a road trip, you can stick 5, 6, 7 paintings in there, large sizes, all kinds of sizes. So there you go. That's our question there of the week. And if there's other questions, throw them in. Thanks for joining me, guys. And if you're on the replay, just check out some other videos. Subscribe if you love plein air painting or interested in what we're doing here. Go ahead and subscribe. And I want to ask you to hit that link in the description that is about plein air supply and setup. So if you have questions about getting started with plein air painting and supplies, I made a free unlisted private YouTube videos you can click on. It also gives you access to our community and my newsletter where you get some insider tips and stuff like that. So Go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get reminded of these live shows every Friday. And appreciate you joining us. Watch this next video up here on top 2 beginner struggles that plein air oil painters have. Actually, Dan, who was just on this live, was one of our subscribers, was in that video. He helped me make it, came down for a private lesson. And we talk about some of the things we discussed today about values and the struggles of color mixing and value. So I'll put that up there. Click on this right now. I'll see you over there in that next video. You're going to really love this video. Dan made an awesome painting. So thanks for joining me. God bless you guys and have a good weekend. And I'll catch you on the patio next Friday at 9 or see you up in the mountains, man. All right. You take care.